Double quick loading screen. Game number 2 of this semi-final of the 1v1 tournament between DeathTacticus and YerAnd. The winner will play PB Head in the final. DeathTacticus took game number 1 in this series. A relatively quick Sol 4 game number 1, and he has the advantage going into game number 2. I'm Terra Incognita. Alongside me is Phil Athanic.
Hey everybody.
What do you make of this one, Phil?
Well, this one's a little bit interesting. I'm going to expect to see a bunch of steel producers coming down early, found on these iron patches. Go for steel, or the other option would be to go for this long-distance shipping scavenger patch.
What is this? So DT deciding that he wants to buy up as much carbon as he possibly can. He gets into that aluminum, he gets into the water. This is an interesting start for DT. It's a little bit optimistic with that carbon. Fuel is starting low, so not too bad, but still. Something else I want to point out: 2 silicon tiles on this whole map. It might not matter very much, but there is now a glass module on the colony, so maybe that's important later in the game. At the moment, though, price is pretty dead across the board, so any advantage that you get from that is strictly going to be a long-term advantage.
Right, DeathTacticus is deciding to go for the quick water money, which he completely crashed the price out of that. That was one of the few primary resources that actually started high, and it sort of worked out for him so far. He's going to have to deal with all the shipping. He's lucky that there are magnetic storms, but at the moment it's not worth it. What is going to hurt him would be nukes, because it is really hard to rotate. Versus if we go look at YerAnd's base, YerAnd is on iron everywhere, so sure, nukes on the high or medium would be painful, but he could still just rotate out into something else.
Counter nuke comes in on the aluminum, so YerAnd probably going to have to commit another tile to that aluminum, at least eventually. He's got most of what he needs to get to the HQ3 upgrade, but is going to be running at a significant deficit compared to what he needs to get through upgrades in a timely fashion. YerAnd, though, 6k cash and resources. The upgrade is 9, so he's not too far away. And he's certainly ahead of DT right now in terms of getting to that HQ3 upgrade.
Just waiting for the steel to come in. It's split nicely. DeathTacticus black market is online, but he might not want to pay for it because he's not earning a lot of money. He has
that's very true.
Almost 600 water, which is a crazy amount of water to be sitting on. I'd like to see these farms move into something that would actually make some money.
So the issue that he might have is there's a dust storm in 30 seconds, and he's going to go into reactors instead of farms, and it's going to be quite painful for him. There's a dust storm coming. YerAnd takes the geotherm, and I think is also taking a wind turbine along with that. Seeing that dust storm coming, has another claim and is trying to get the carbon together to put another wind turbine down. It's going to be tricky for him, though, because he doesn't have any sort of income right now at all. Steel is completely worthless, so is iron. So I don't think he's going to be able to make enough money to get that second wind turbine down.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if he can. The other thing about YerAnd's spot, which I didn't have time to talk about before we started, is this side of the map is really low water access. He just has these 2 lows to the bottom of him. There are no core samples, so there's no way to make water. All the water's on the other side of the map, which means if YerAnd wants to go into life support, these nukes are going to make it really painful, one way or the other.
Yep, absolutely. DT deciding to take the HQ3 upgrade rather than to try and maybe mutiny away the wind turbine or something like that. YerAnd really without any money to respond at all. YerAnd does buy a goon. I imagine that's going to go onto the geotherm as soon as it finishes. Power up now, close to 250. DT with the goon of his own, going to put the wind turbine down, which again makes an awful lot of sense because that's what you need to be doing. You need to be protecting that power, certainly with the dust storm happening, certainly with power up at 260. And DT, not going to fall too far into debt, but he's at that 70k and that B rating, which is getting to the point where it starts to be uncomfortable.
I'd like to see these nukes from YerAnd continue to rain down on DeathTacticus Carbon right here. Just make life as difficult for him as possible to get to the upgrades, make these awkward tiles that are way out here away from his base that he can't really use in the future. I understand why YerAnd wants to goon his geotherm, but especially because power's so high, but I think being offensive here would definitely help his case long term.
Yeah, DT agrees with you. He mutinies away the geotherm. So YerAnd, again, without really any money to respond to that mutiny. 3,500 is what he needs to get the mutiny in again. Like, he's going into that water, and I question this water pickup because DT's been making water for a long time. And is he trying to... I think he's trying to boost the price of water by buying into it and to try and make DT's farms unprofitable. The issue with that is that DT's got a lot of water.
Yes.
Basically, you're just giving DT a bunch of money, and it's not the thing really that's going to help you win. YerAnd going into reactors. DT has transitioned his reactors into farms, gets to the HQ4 upgrade, and it now has less debt as well than YerAnd does. So power on its way down. So it's not going to be decided by power this game, but certainly the power play that YerAnd went into made it so that DT, I think, has made quite a bit more money in the middle part of the game than YerAnd. This wind turbine and these two geos were quite considerably, or were quite considerable investments for YerAnd, and really they haven't paid off because DT, again, able to stop him making that power money and has made a bunch more money too.
Well, the geos actually weren't that much of an investment because steel's been so cheap for so long. The issue is he has 3 claims away from his base that are not, he can't transfer these geos into anything else, but this wind turbine is just really awkward. He should have decided either to go into geos or go into the turbines. And he originally wanted to do turbines, but then just didn't have enough money to get the second turbine up, and then went into geos.
Yeah, I mean that is true, but I mean, but again, I mean, yeah, steel is very cheap, but he never fixed his aluminum situation either. He got his aluminum nuked out, and he's not ever replaced it, so he's only getting 0.25 a second of aluminum, and that's going to be, I mean, that's an expensive resource now. DT very sensibly not selling that down, and YerAnd's going to need an awful lot more than that to upgrade. He needs another 100, and that's going to be very expensive for him.
This time, buying into water actually will hurt DT eventually, as DT's water stock has finally diminished down to 0.
Yeah, and those reactors are not really doing anything at all. Not making very much money. Only really tanking the price of fuel, which is useful for DT because he is shipping that carbon a long way. Over 1 fuel per second right now on these carbon, which is a lot of money that he would be burning if fuel were high, but he's controlling that price really well.
YerAnd buying into this natural food shortage, just trying to scrape up some money any way he can, try to get himself back into this game. He has the upgrade right now if he wants it. He takes it to HQ4, but he is currently 32k behind in DeathTacticus going into that second aluminum. I would expect this aluminum to be nuked out anytime now.
Yep, if he can't protect it with anything, and right now he can't because he doesn't have the money to do it. Again, that aluminum might not be long for this world.
DeathTacticus moving up to HQ5, still has 11k in the bank, although most of that is tied up in carbon, which he'll be using to construct more items. Moving into 2 remote water claims when he still has plenty of water claims by his base. That's an interesting decision.
It's very interesting, isn't it? He's got, and I wonder if he wants to transition those water next to his base into something else, but he's putting so much food down. He's making 4 food a second here, and that's going to make him a lot of money because food is very profitable. Over $160 a tile, albeit falling very quickly as you would expect. He also has a Pleasure Dome claim, so again, that Pleasure Dome going to be pretty good. It's not an amazing Pleasure Dome map, but again, power at $3, so plenty of prospect for that to just tick away through the whole game with basically no downside.
DeathTacticus is also moving into a hacker array, wants to finish this game with hacks in the mid game, not let it go late, not let YerAnd have any chance of catching up. We'll see if he can figure out some markets to hack. YerAnd, not aware that the hacker array exists, might think it's another farm, decides to freeze that whole mess of farms anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, the farm situation right now is really worrying for YerAnd because food is so profitable, and yeah, DT freezing out YerAnd's farms as well, which, and yeah, YerAnd just chasing all of those profits. Absolutely needs to right now because the food situation, the food is definitely the most profitable thing he can be making. The silicon situation has become interesting as well because DT and YerAnd both have a silicon tile, the only 2 tiles on the map. But again, I would expect, if I were waiting for this game to go long, I would expect the nukes to come raining down on that silicon very soon. That's potentially something that is hackable for one or other of these players. DT though going into 2 hacker arrays. I wonder if YerAnd suspects that that's happening.
Considering that it
freeze both
was a water pump that rotated, I think, and YerAnd put the EMP directly on top of it. I think he's aware that that's a hacker array, and he wants none of that right now.
Yeah, 2 direct hits on the hacker arrays for YerAnd. I hadn't realized as well that these glass claims that YerAnd's put down are actually remote. They're the wind turbines that were there a while ago.
They are making decent money, it's just taking a while to get in. If he makes it to HQ 5, which right now I'm not sure he can safely upgrade. We'll definitely want
to. Yeah, it's big risk, isn't it? DT only at 40%, but still, that's enough money and enough income potential to at least make you worried about the situation there. So DT is going to hack Carbon. And Carbon right now, he has 800 of it in his stockpile. He's actually turned his elemental quarries off because of the shipping costs, which is kind of interesting, but he is going to hack that Carbon.
Power surges continue to rain down from DeathTacticus on YerAnd's life support.
Yep, so electrolysis reactors shut down, at least for the time being. And YerAnd just struggling to make enough money. Certainly, I mean, he doesn't have anywhere near what he needs to upgrade because he's not making steel anymore. That's the issue. Big stockpile of iron, but no steel. And DT
buys into Carbon, showing his hand. YerAnd moves into a hacker array himself. Finally connects up with his glass. I do not think the hacker array will get online to do anything with the first Carbon hack. That's just coming in right now.
No, it certainly won't. YerAnd still hasn't bought any spies, by the way, for DT's hacker arrays, and the underground nuke, that'll be on the water. So YerAnd really struggling for that resource. The only 2 water tiles are anywhere nearby, so it's going to be hard for YerAnd to sustain that level of production.
Yeah, the much delayed nuke, but DeathTacticus eventually throws it down.
So DT decided now is the time. He's going to go into YerAnd and try and finish this series right here and right now and get himself into the final. He has very close to the amount of money that he needs. YerAnd is a little bit short on defending himself. It's going to be really close. He's just trying to frantically sell everything down. YerAnd is 8,000, 10,000 or so away. DT selling out.
We'll
4
have
seconds,
the game.
3 seconds. I think he's going to do it. 2 games to 0. DeathTacticus is our second finalist in the 1v1 tournament. He's going to play PB head in that final, and YerAnd with the 2-game knockout will go down into the bronze level of the bronze medal game between him and Blues. So that's our bracket. A very convincing win for DeathTacticus, able to take the first game on power at HQ4 And the second game, well, it wasn't power this time, but it was still an early win with a couple of hacker arrays, able to get the money that he needed, get himself a big enough lead, get the HQ lead, and then finish the game from there. Well played, DT.
Yeah, DeathTacticus betting that he could make it up to the upgrades and go into the profitable life support before YerAnd could nuke out all of his carbon. YerAnd, on the other hand, went heavy in the steel early, crashed that price, and then really didn't have any way to make money. If he went a little bit less into steel, perhaps a little bit more diversified at HQ2, he might have had enough money to keep raining those nukes down on DeathTacticus carbon, just make those upgrades for DeathTacticus as difficult and awkward as possible, and then maybe have a chance. But since it was life support, and YerAnd only had access to these 2 lows, the fact that DeathTacticus got ahead, had all this water, kind of just sealed YerAnd's fate, unfortunately.
Yeah, and he got what he needed. These remote carbon claims were really interesting, and one of them even got nuked out by YerAnd. But again, DT able to get enough carbon while fuel was cheap that it really didn't hurt him in terms of debt. He ended the game with just over 100,000 of debt, which is quite a bit of debt. But and a lot of that was fuel. But again, not worrying about it at all. He ended up spending, not all that much, 33,000 on the fuel costs, and able to take game number 2 quite comfortably. So that's our series. We're going to have the